Oh, you just wait as it grows. You will see why I've resisted growing in the past, because it's just going to get bigger.
I'm so excited to see it, though. Like,
yeah, I am.
Yep.
I am going to have long, gray, hippie granny hair. That's my goal.
I'm so excited. Like, I cannot even wait.
I know. I was talking with Robert, and I'm like, I've never felt like I fit in. I wasn't one of those. So it's almost like subconsciously, I'm not even realizing it. I chose to do the one thing that would make me stand out in the only way possible. So when all the girls had this long, beautiful, pretty hair, I had super short, cropped, edgy hair. And now that I'm older and they're all cutting it off, I'm like, fuck that.
Go
I'm
the other direction.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, I'm going to be an Earth Mama hippie on the beach with my long hair and doing my thing.
Just makes me so happy.
Yeah. Yep. That's me. So
I'm going to have long gray hair too.
Yes.
We'll have long gray hair together.
We'll do the braided.
I'm going to wear it in pigtails and braids.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, so my hair's like slowly not being a redhead anymore.
It's going to be glorious.
I was telling him the other day, I was like, well, am I still a redhead then? Like when my hair all goes gray, I'm like, do I still identify as become like, that's such a big part of my life.
It
like
is.
My nickname was Red in high school. Like I have always been, and I always tell people like, I'm a feisty redhead from New York. And I'm like, will I still be when I'm gray? Like
you will never not be a feisty redhead from New York.
But
never.
I know, like I had it up the other day, and he's like, your hair's so brown underneath. I'm like, yeah, and then it's highlighted, and then it's gray right here in the center. So really, the only red I have left is like when I have it down.
Yes.
And then I'm like, there, I can still pull off red. But as soon as I put it up, I'm like, what color is your hair?
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Isn't that funny how
like
that is such a big part of my...
Well, it was hard for me to finally say, okay, I'm going to let my hair be what it is naturally, because mine was always, I had that little bit different combination of really blue eyes and very dark hair.
Oh, yeah.
And I clung to that because I'm like, that's all I got. That's it. That's all I got. It's the only special thing. And I'm like, I am so much more than my dark hair.
Yep.
So
that to me, like when I went through my cancer scares a couple of years ago, that was to me quite honestly more devastating than like if I had to have a mastectomy or anything. Like the loss of my hair was, I think that was the thing I shed the most tears over, and that I was the most grateful for when it turns out that it wasn't, but I was like, wow, like I didn't realize how much I identified with that until that moment where happens. I was like, oh.
Almost every woman says that. And it's so funny. I'm like, I've always had basically no hair. I could handle that, but not anymore because now I have this goal. I want it long and gray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it would just devastate me. Like, I have to start this all over. Do you know how long this process is?
No, you push the button and your hair grows. Remember you said that like a cheap
and you crank it out. So, and I want it short, so you turn the dial.
Oh my gosh.
Can we do that? That'd be great. Days I don't feel like dealing with it, just crank it short.
It would be
and
amazing.
Then going out and yank the hair out of my head.
I'm going to take my nighttime hairstyle out and just pull it all out.
There is no kid right now that would have any clue what I'm talking about. Like crank the back of the dial.
I feel like they had one.
Oh, you push the stomach when you wanted to, like there was a little button thing. Like I'd have to push where belly button would be and then the hair would come out.
Did they have a Barbie like that? I don't think so. They had the Barbie that had the baby, which was really weird because all of a sudden the belly was there and then it wasn't. But I don't know if they had a hair growing.
Not the Barbie. There was a hair doll that would go long or short.
So
I don't
Barbie
think
needs to now invent we'll do like a workplace haircut and then
we need
you
a
push
Barbie
the button
for the
and
short
it goes
hair
to
girls.
Like nice long
for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, totally got off on a Barbie tangent. Anyways, on that note, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
We are at Millennium. We were supposed to be down by the river, but the rain changed our mind. And then the rain ended as soon as we got here. So we roll with it.
Like, do you wait it out? Do you set up someplace else?
It's Michigan. We never know what in the world is going on.
It would have been very wet down by the
It would have been really wet
there.
and very buggy. So I'm glad that we're here and not there. So
let them take me as far as they want to go. And it's time for me to say they won't break me. I'm braver than I know. I was made for this. Oh, such
Well, we're going to talk today about education, kind of piggybacking on what we talked about last week and kind of diving a lot deeper into it this week because I think it's back to school time for everybody. I think it's very, very relevant right now. So,
Well, and most kids have just been back for either a week or started this week. That's kind of been the average norm around here at least. And I think people are kind of starting to get settled in that routine, and that's when it's like, oh yeah, all this school stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think quite honestly, the way Michigan does it these days drives me crazy because the kids go to school for like a week or two and then they're off for Labor Day. And so you get them into the school mode and then you're like, just kidding, we have another vacation that we're going on. You know, anyways, I wish they would go back to after Labor Day. I think that would be great. I know it's our governor that changed that, and I feel like she can definitely change it back. But I think it's just early. I think Governor. August is so hot every year on record. It is so hot. And then they end up having to close the schools because they don't have the air conditioning.
Right.
And so I'm like, just push it back by 2 weeks.
That's it. That is
June is cooler. You know, most of the time June is cooler. So if you have to go a little bit farther into June,
it's
I would
easier
rather
on
do
that
that
side
than
of it
lose.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, half of August.
We just had it that our church actually provided air conditioners for some of the teachers at the public schools around us because it was so unbelievably hot. Like 90s in the humidity, just misery.
Yeah. And you
they
can't
purchased
learn.
air conditioners for for individual rooms.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean that's how.
What a good use of
Isn't that what
the
a church
church's
should be?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That to me is
No, I think it's just miserable. You know, I mean, you're trying to get kids to pay attention. They're you know, off the wall anyways because it's the first couple of weeks of school, and then they're dying of heat.
Yeah.
That's not a combination. That's not a good combination.
And the teachers. I mean, come on, their job's hard enough. So
So hard. I'm kind of
I
glad I'm
can
not
only
teaching anymore.
imagine.
I don't know if I could. Like I mean, the last time I taught was, I don't know, at least 10 years
what
ago
makes
now.
you say that? I'm just out of curiosity.
To me, the whole environment of teaching has changed, even since I went to college. So I graduated in 2000, and then I jumped right into teaching, and the whole environment of teaching was very different.
Okay.
There were plenty of jobs at that point. I was getting job offers well into like almost to December of my first year teaching, and I'm like, I already have a job, but thank you.
Really, still pursuing
and then
that.
and then it kind of dropped off, you know, about 10 years after that.
Okay.
But yeah.
You had your job offer for the job you worked at. So tell that part.
Oh yeah. Well, I was hired on my first job. I was hired there before I even graduated.
Okay.
From Calvin.
So they are just needing teachers.
Yep.
You
And
say
they-
that, and I've been surprised at how many people have said we've been looking for a teaching job.
Right.
And I'm like, when did that happen? That
Right.
there
so
weren't
there's
jobs
this
available.
weird balance since COVID and all of that, and then and then now they're like, oh, we really need teachers, but then again, people aren't finding jobs, and I'm like, why? Like, why is there that
going on?
But I also see, it's the same thing with all the work environment. You see now hiring signs all over the place. You see businesses closing down because they can't hire people, but yet people are like, I've been looking for a job and I can't find one. So why? Like, there's such a disconnect there.
So there are jobs.
There are jobs.
So is it, these are people with specific jobs in mind that they can't find and not willing to do that?
Yeah,
I just don't know what all is contributing. I know the job situation is just weird now.
It is really weird right now.
And it's like a lot of people, I think, they're like, I stayed home for a couple years. I really liked it. I don't want to go to work.
Yep. And I think a lot of companies are hiring for part-time so that they don't have to pay all the
full-time
rest of it. And
benefits.
so they'll have you work, up to that max of 36 hours or something. And then they don't have to pay you full-time. But yeah, anyways, we get off on that tangent.
Okay.
But
Back to school.
So back to school. I think the other aspect of how teaching has changed is the respect level that kids have for teachers has gone way downhill.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it would be very difficult to be a teacher in this environment right now because of the whole movement in general of, these are my rights and this is how I identify and this is what I'm going to do and nobody can tell me otherwise. And, all of this that is swung way too far the other direction.
Right.
Which leaves teachers with
what do they do?
No power anymore.
There's no control, I would
Nope.
imagine. And I don't even mean control in that bad sense.
Right.
But I mean control in the sense of setting up a classroom that is geared towards learning.
Yeah.
I think it's not so much the students that are the problems as coming from homes that may not
Absolutely.
back up
Right.
the teachers in the school
Mm-hmm.
and saying you are there for an education, not to cause trouble and difficulties.
Right.
Listen, I don't
Yeah.
know, but
So, I mean, because what do you do as a teacher when you have the situation and you then reach to the parents for the support, the backup,
Right.
because we do it all together. How it's designed, you're supposed to, they teach and then you're at
Yes.
school and then you support each.
that's my ADD showing because I'm always moving. It's just how I think it's
Yep.
a subconscious thing. It's what ADD people do. There's something, and then I can focus.
But when your body is moving, you can focus better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something teachers need to be aware of
They're
too.
like
so.
so on that note, we'll go to that really quick. So my kids went to the Montessori school, and so
Yes.
it was not the traditional sit in the desks and the chairs and
Yep.
all of that. And so we had a lot of movement pieces that the kids could sit on, and like all these different. There was one like this half circle thing, and then it would
Like a
they would
half
kind
medicine
of
ball.
and they would kind of sit on it and move it all around, and they had
Parker,
Yep.
they provided that for Parker, my
Yep.
youngest one in school, because they recognized with his mind there was something about that motion
Yep.
that assisted his mind in transitioning from I have all this head knowledge and I have to translate it down onto paper.
Right.
And just something about that movement. So they provided it. And they're like, we weren't real sure, because he's the only one in this classroom. We're going to do this. And teacher has laughed and she goes, I have every single kid saying, this isn't fair. How come we don't get one of those?
Right.
And thinking it's the coolest thing. So she says, Parker's always letting people bounce on it and
I
sit
love
on it.
that.
And
And I think that is what a lot of teachers are afraid of, is when they bring in something for one student or two students that will help that particular student learn. They're like, well, now everybody's going to want one. I'm like, I get that, but not everybody learns in the way that that child does.
Right.
And so those children can sit for the most part.
Yes.
And be productive learners while they're sitting. I'm not saying that it works for everybody, but that is something as a teacher, you just need to suck it up and say,
Yeah.
this is what this person needs.
Right.
The rest of you don't.
Right.
That
Real-
needs to be okay.
Yeah.
It's an okay thing.
Yeah, real life doesn't mean we all have the same thing.
No.
You have that great car. Well, I need one of those too now. It's life just in general as you become an adult, just because somebody has something extra doesn't mean automatically everybody does it.
Right.
Life isn't everybody gets first place. That's not reality.
It's not. And when kids are not, kind of steered away from that, and they're allowed to have that mentality and
Right.
they're allowed to have that, entitlement, then they do become the adults that are like, well, I don't have it, so I'm going to take it.
Yeah,
or I
I
don't
just
have
want
it,
it.
so and then
Yeah.
they're never content with what they have. And it's just a whole spiraling thing.
Yes.
So I think that's an important thing to just,
Right.
Well, yeah.
And I think it will encourage people then more to find what is my thing? What am I really good at? Instead of everybody thinking you all need to have exactly the same thing.
Right.
In the big scheme, big picture of things, what a lopsided world this is going to end up being. We need people all the way from the first one coming in to the last one coming in. And it's
Absolutely.
like running races. I happily take up the back of the pack. I'll never be the first one in, and I'm not upset that, well, this isn't fair. I ran the same event. I should have what they have. No, those people, they train like I do not.
Absolutely.
And that's my choice.
Well, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, but there was recently a pole vaulting jumping thing for the world championships,
Yes,
and
the
they
two women.
tied, right? So the women tied, and they decided to share the gold medal
Yes.
instead of trying to figure out, whatever. And I love because they have
Yes.
so many people have given them grief over that. There has to be a winner.
who
there has to
won?
be a clear
Who
winner.
won?
And they said it doesn't matter. They've been doing the sport together. They encourage each other.
Right.
And I just love that.
Yeah,
they have
they
stood
went
up
and-
for it and said, it's not about the winning,
Right.
it's about the sport, and it's
Yes.
about saying we did equally as
They
good
went
as
out
each
there,
other.
gave it their all.
Yeah.
Performed.
Absolutely.
And they performed at the same level.
Yes.
What an amazing thing. Instead of sitting here like somebody's got to be the winner, who's
Yes.
the loser of those two? Why can't you celebrate the amazing thing they accomplished?
I am so proud of them for just breaking that norm and
Yes.
saying no.
Because they were hugging. I saw the
Yes.
photo and
oh,
I'm
absolutely.
like, can we bring back competition like this?
Yes.
Where it's like, I'm not going to be mad because I have to share. I can celebrate
Yep.
that we came out here and really did something amazing.
Right. And it's not like one of them went, oh, you have, or whatever. They agreed. They did it together. And
I
I
love
thought
it.
that was, I just thought that was really cool.
Good learning.
Equally better than everybody else.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Equally better than everyone
Celebrate
else.
that.
Yep. But yeah, so on that same note of like how kids learn, when we were talking in the last one, you were saying you
Yes.
have the unique,
I have
experience
all three
of
different-
having so many different
Yes.
categories. And so I would love to kind of expand on that.
For sure.
And talk about, because, that I think is probably the number one problem in education is that they feel like everything has to be cookie cutter. Every kid has to learn this exact same way, and there's no room for
It's a
anything
disservice.
different, right?
It's a disservice
Yeah.
for if you're not in the middle of the pack, where most students do fall. But you have some that learn outside of it, either on this side or this side. Both of them get left by the wayside.
I agree.
Both of them.
Yeah.
And that benefits nobody at all. Absolutely none at all. I found it interesting that I talked to a parent of somebody that had, and when I say exceptionally gifted child, I'm talking someone who they had the difficult decision to make what to do with their first grade son. Do we advance him to the grade level that he's at? And they're like, well, he's reading at a 7th grade level. He's in first grade. He can't do that. So they kept him with his peers. But then how do we challenge him? Because
Right.
he's in this classroom with his friends, but academically, his mind is way beyond. So they signed him up for things like he was taking Latin classes through
That's
a college.
awesome. Yeah.
He was taking college level math, courses outside of, because they're like, it's important that he at least socially be in with that age group because he's still 7.
Right.
He just
Emotionally, physically, all of that
yes.
still 7.
And I
Yep.
can remember his mother just sobbing over this because she's like, in this society, in this world, I have a child that doesn't fit anywhere.
No.
And she goes, it breaks my heart. Everybody's sitting here telling her, oh, you're so lucky. How amazing. You must be so glad. She goes, what I am thankful every day that our younger son is just quote unquote normal. She goes, life is so much easier for that child. She goes, it's heartbreaking, the struggle that we have trying to find the right fit.
Right, because that's not the standard.
Right.
That, and so any side of it, whether you have a child that learns a little bit more slowly or a child that learns exceptionally quickly,
Yes.
the system is not designed
No.
to in
No.
any way include them.
No, it's like a sifter and they fall out.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, again, from an outside perspective, oh, how cool, your son is super smart, and which is great. And
It
own,
is.
he was created that way intentionally.
Absolutely.
So he has a
For
purpose.
sure.
Like God has said, this child needs to be just like this, and
Yes.
he's going to serve
perfect
a purpose.
as he is.
Absolutely.
There's just going to be a challenge.
Yep.
Finding his place in the world.
Yeah. And nobody would ever classify that as a disability, right?
Nobody.
But it is
As-
because it's a learning difference. It is somewhat of a disability because you don't fit in that
Right.
same.
And-
These bees are loving you today. Are you just throwing stuff at us now?
I'm like, where did this come from?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like,
Getting
So-
stuff thrown at us.
No-
Is it that bad? We're getting like booed off the stage. It's not working. They just love Heidi today.
It must be the stuff I put in my hair. That was a bad idea.
It must be.
Me too. They keep landing in my hair. And I'm like pulling my shirt close.
It's so funny.
Oh, man.
But yeah, we went through that with our oldest. He was pretty much reading before he got into kindergarten. I mean, he learned so fast and never looked like he was learning. Right. And so he was always busy doing who knows what, never paying attention to stuff. And then we would ask him, did you hear what we said or whatever? And he could spit it back.
Oh, right there.
Right.
His
Never even
mind
looked
is
at us, but totally could spit
everything.
it back. And I mean, he was speaking in full sentences at 1.
Yep.
Mom, can I have some cake? On
Right.
his first birthday type of thing. And I thought that was normal. It's not.
Your first one. You just
It's
assume
not.
that it's all. I thought all
yeah.
my kids would be like the first one. Isn't this all? Yeah. No.
But schooling for him was very, very difficult from preschool literally through senior year graduating.
Okay.
It was never just an easy thing. He got kicked out of his first preschool. I was teaching there, so that was quite funny because they were like, we need to have a conversation about your son. I'm like, yeah, I know he's not quite ready for this. But he was 3, right?
He's 3.
Busy as all get out, already understood everything that they were teaching. And so he was very disruptive because he just wanted to play because he
call
would
it
grab
exuberant.
the concept. Oh, yes. He was a little naughty. So he was invited to stay home for that year. And then... And then we decided he was invited to stay home for the rest of the year.
Love
yes.
that.
And then the next year we put him in the Montessori.
Yes.
Which was the best decision we could have ever made because we knew traditional education was not going to be a thing that he was going to be able to handle. And I give his preschool, and because it's a combined like preschool through kindergarten.
Yes.
And we still are very close with this
I
teacher.
love
She
it.
taught all of our kids. And I give her so much credit because he was not an easy child to deal with. And then by the time he got to kindergarten, then his brother was in the classroom with him. So then it was like even worse because he was the 3-year-old and he was in kindergarten anyways. But so that was the first best decision we made because he could move and he could do everything, right? But then we had a little bit of an issue with his first grade teacher who kept trying to diagnose him with everything under the sun. I'm not kidding you. Every week she would come to us and say, well, I think he has this and I think he has this. And I was like, I am a certified special ed teacher. First of all, it's not legal for you to diagnose my child with anything. And I'm like, and if he checks some of the boxes on some of these, that doesn't mean he has it.
No, I know. Do you know how many boxes I check on all sorts of different things?
I like to scatter,
I'm kind of like, he's his own unique individual person. I wish we could take big giant steps back from this need to have a label or a diagnosis for everything.
I totally agree with that.
And just say, this is how they're wired, this is how they are.
And that's exactly it. Because the more that we diagnose people with stuff, it puts them in a category which they may or may not actually fit in. And then their treatments for it don't necessarily work because they only have part of what could be this category. So we pulled them. We pulled them and put them in a different school.
Schools are all these boxes.
Which
box does this child fit in? And that's where we want them instead of how can we best serve them in this role as an educator.
Exactly.
So we create an environment where they will be successful as they progress. That's your job as a teacher.
Right. And
What's wrong with the educator, not the student? That's weird.
well, and a lot of times I know, because I'm a teacher, so I can speak to this, right? It's so much work. And so then you have to do all of these things. And then you're like, wait, I have to know each one of my individual students. Like I have to, yes, you do.
You do.
Because in my opinion, if you take the time to get to know your students the best that you possibly can and see how they learn, you will have less interruptions in your classroom.
For sure.
You will actually cover more material because your students are getting what you're teaching and you don't have to keep going over it. You will look good as a teacher because your students' scores will go up, their happiness, the parents will be happy. So yes, it might take a little bit more time on the beginning part of school to get to know each student and to figure out, or even as school goes on, because you're not going to know them right away.
Oh, for sure.
But to go, oh, you know what?
Time.
This student has bombed the last 3 tests.
Let's figure out why.
However, they are paying full attention in class. They can answer any question that we talk about. Their assignments are good. Oh, wait, they might struggle taking tests.
Parker.
What is it that I
It
can
was
do
Parker.
differently? Right.
Yes.
And but the problem is a lot of times teachers are just like, oh, what,
Well,
they're
too
a bad
bad.
test take. No, like
Find
take
out
the time
how you
to figure
can
that
measure where they're at.
Right.
There are ways
Sometimes
to do
you
it.
can give it to them verbally,
Yes.
or
they did for Parker for quite a while.
or
And
take them out of the environment that they're
sudden,
in.
He's
And
just like, he went from like failing, and we're talking younger elementary, but it was all the testing stuff, and they went to verbalizing. He rarely got under a B.
yep,
I mean, and that's like drastic, and it was one change.
exactly.
And they had a resource person available, and that would come in. She was an older woman. She was a grandma.
Yeah.
Her youngest kid had left the house, and her grandkids went to school there, and she just decided she wanted to be a classroom assistant for whatever was needed.
Right.
And she would sit with Parker and verbally give him
Absolutely.
the test.
Yeah.
And it was miraculous,
Which
the change
then
in him.
boosts his confidence.
He just soared.
You know what
He just
it's all
soared.
around. It's so much better.
Yeah.
And the problem is, again, so from like a special ed point of view, if a student has not been diagnosed with something,
Yes.
they cannot get the resources that
Oh,
they
I know.
need in order to have their education specialized for them.
Right.
And that is what I hold issue with, because it's just not realistic to.
What is it with the need to have a diagnosis label?
Well, and there's not enough
like,
resources
oh.
to do that for every child.
Right.
In my opinion, every child could have an individual learning
Absolutely.
plan. Like an IEP is what it's called.
It'd be-
But like,
I think it'd be beautiful.
every child could have one of
I think it'd
those.
be beautiful. We don't do a workout plan. We don't do a diet plan. We go to college with everything else in life is kind of, we set ourselves up
Yeah, it's
the right way
tailored
to
for
be
you.
successful. But our kids, nope, you're all going to do it exactly the same way and
Right.
figure it out. And it's so sad to me. I was thinking about what you said with teachers. Yes, it may mean just taking some extra time. I know you're busy already. And that's kind of like a parallel to me as a paramedic. If I would have gone to every call and did the same thing, do you know how many patients I would have killed?
Right. It has to be tailored to the situation.
I can't do my job the same for every, and I would think that it would benefit kids to have adults approach them the same way.
So I know for me, my learning style
Yes.
is visual. You can tell me something and I will look at you and be like, okay, sweet.
Show me.
And then, when I write things, I might be a little bit of, kind of like that kinesthetic, but I am a visual learner. If you
Yes.
show me how to do something, I will never forget and I will pick it up really quickly.
I can identify with it. I kind of use two different tools for my learning. As I had mentioned earlier, I am very ADD. I accept it. I have always been. It is not medicated ADD. They tried as an adult.
Right.
And it went really badly because this is how I'm wired and this is familiar.
Right.
This is how I learned to learn. So if you take it away from me and I can't do life this way, I'm focused on one thing. This
Yeah.
is not okay. And where was I going with that? Oh,
Your
two
ADD.
different.
You were literally talking about your ADD. That was amazing.
This is me.
I love
So
it.
then I just keep randomly talking and figure out where I am. My
You said
two
you combined
learning
two
styles.
learning styles, yeah.
It's the visual, but I took copious amounts of notes, always handwriting. For me, it was through the process of writing far more than I needed to, but it ingrained it in my head.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely ingrained it. And then you add a visual to it. I was gold. Absolute gold. It's like, okay, my brain's got it.
Right.
It just needed a couple inputs for it to.
That's how I used to
figure.
study. So, even in college, I would take notes, during class and stuff, or they would do the handouts or whatever. And I would study by rewriting my notes.
I did the same.
And then it was in there.
Yes.
And then it was in there. Like for me,
Yeah.
like on my whiteboard on my refrigerator, if I have written it down on my whiteboard,
Yes.
even if I can't see my whiteboard, I can close my eyes and be like, okay, I wrote this.
Visualize it.
It is. And so for me, like when I switched over to using my Google Calendar on my phone as opposed to my planner as much, which was a very recent thing, my brain forgot so many things
forget
because
things.
I wasn't physically writing it down.
I forgot I was supposed to bring the barbecue last night because
Yep.
my husband's trying to convince me I need to go to Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Look what
It's
happened.
hard. If I don't actually write it down, but there is something to that. I mean, think about how we teach little kids how to learn how to write and to read.
Yeah.
They trace things with their
Right.
hand.
But now it's just-
they do all of that. I know. Addie just went to like the high school, right? And so they do tons of things on her Chromebook. And just last night, she was so frustrated because she had a math problem. And she's like, I don't get a math book. They scanned the math book and put it on the Chromebook. And so now she has to
no.
go through all the pages. And she's like, I want to open a book and look at it and then be able to flip back to the pages.
I'm a book. Put a book in my hand.
Yeah, she's
with
so
pages.
frustrated about that. And
It seems like they should have the option.
so
Do you
they
want
may
a
use the book
or a-
in school, but they don't have enough for the kids to all bring them
Oh,
home.
man.
That was a whole nother issue. But I was just like, okay, well, what about those of you like you who desire it and really need that to learn?
It was beneficial to my learning.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways,
Oh.
but yeah, I think
Things are hard for kids.
things are very hard for kids. And, you know, we touched on that, and I feel like it was very well received when we were talking about all the things that kids take to school with them on their shoulders, all the things that they have to deal with
Yeah.
during the school day. And it's so heavy. And
I've been thinking about that a lot since that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this family that I know, and I don't know if I've shared it on here. I think I had mentioned to you that they lost their father to suicide
Mm-hmm.
a couple months ago.
right.
So one of the daughters just had a birthday and then started school. And they're going into school just young, like 8 years old. And you can see it. She just looks shell shocked.
And their world has been
Just shell shocked. And I kept thinking about that. And then it starts to grow. It's like, now multiply that to all these kids, because this world we live in is just,
Right.
there's so much. And
But then you think about that, right? So we'll use her for the example. She is dealing with all of this over the summer and then she goes back to school, and now she's in class with kids that had just a normal summer. But yeah, and then she has to deal with carrying all of that. But then
Yes.
it compounds, right? So her mind is thinking of all of that.
Yeah.
Class is going on. She's not learning as much. Her grades start to go down,
Yes.
which then her self-esteem starts to go
Yes.
down. And then she's carrying the weight of all of those things compounded.
yes.
And it just breaks my heart because how
It
many
does.
kids, this is one that we know of, but
Just
how
one.
many kids
How many more?
every day deal
Yeah.
with stuff at school and
Yeah. Things kids shouldn't have to carry around, and they
Right.
do. And as you were saying that, my mind is like, you're like, the grades start going down. And I'm like, so many of these kids do athletics and play sports.
Oh,
While
yeah.
your grades go down, guess what happens? You don't
you
get
don't
to
get
play.
to play. I know.
So you take away the outlet that they have,
Right.
their ability to be part of a team,
Right.
and you take that away from them.
Yep.
To me, it's just, it sometimes feel like a special kind of cruel to these kids that desperately need something. Don't take that.
I totally and completely agree with that. And so speaking to that exact point, you know, Addison's in high school now.
Yes.
She's doing volleyball.
Yes.
She's taking a huge caseload, in my opinion, this year as a freshman. She's got 2 math classes, like
Oh, wow.
AP, algebra. I mean, just all this
Oh my
stuff
goodness.
that she's
So
taking,
not
right?
even, I mean, she's heavy math.
Heavy, you know. And so now she's got all this homework. And last night she was like, how are we expected to do all this? She's like, we go to school all day long. They don't give us any time to do any of the work. They all assign us homework. And she's like, and then I have practice for 2 hours. And then I get home and I'm still trying to, and they expect us to do around 3 hours of homework a day. And she says, when are we supposed to do anything else? And I said, honestly, right now, honey, you're not.
Right.
And I said, you had all summer to do that. And I said, and it kind of sounds like I'm being mean. I'm like, but right now, this is what you have to be doing and you have to be focusing on. She's like, but don't our teachers know that we have sports? Like, they encourage us to play sports. They want us to be involved in extracurricular things, but then they pile on all this work.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I know. I don't agree with homework personally.
I was going to ask you about that
I
because
do not agree with homework.
I heard a brilliant person explaining why this insane amount of work to dump on the kids when they get home. He's like, they're going to school to be educated,
Right.
not sent home to educate themselves.
No, I totally agree. If you can't cover the stuff that they need to know during the day,
Yeah.
then readjust your curriculum.
Yeah. If they have to, brush up on some stuff or skim some notes before a big test, that's one thing. But to
Studying is different
routinely
than-
say
right.
3 hours of homework to get your classwork done, I so disagree with that.
I completely do too. Because
disagree.
again, you think about these long days that these kids, whether they're elementary, middle school, or high school, they're long days. They make it through, socially, they make it through physically, they
Yep.
make it through academically, they make it through. They get done and they're done. When they get home, their brains have completely
Absolutely.
shut off. Like never ask your kid how their day was right after school, because you will get boring, stupid, dumb, whatever.
Wait for them to regroup.
They will tell you at night how their day was,
Mm-hmm.
but like don't ever. I mean, I always did things like, what made you smile today,
I
or
love
what
it.
was something that was funny, or
Best part
something
of
like
your
that.
what
that
was the
more
best?
specific.
What was the highlight of your day?
Yeah.
What was the low point
Because
of your
the
day?
generalized
Just
how was your
something.
day, they're going to either tell you the very last
Eh.
thing that they did walking between the school and
Yeah,
the car
you
or
might
the
get
bus.
a grunt or a
Yeah, and then parents are
something.
like, "Come on, tell me how it was." I'm like, "You guys, chill."
When
Like,
I'm done
just chill.
after a long day of work, I don't want to rehash it all over again with somebody. And I certainly don't want to go home just to have to do more work at home.
Yes. Yeah. So if I could change another thing about education, it would definitely be the homework, because I just think it's the dumbest thing in the world.
I agree.
And a lot of times it's just busy work that they are giving to the students to make it look like they're doing something. I just
I'm not sure.
it makes
And
it more
some of
stressful on
them-
families.
Yeah.
It makes it more stressful on parents and on the kids.
All the
and
way around.
you miss out on family time. You miss out on, well, then think about
How
a
about
high
going
schooler,
outside
right?
and playing? Do you miss
But
out?
that's what I'm saying. Like,
Oh.
so that's vital to your elementary school kids. They need to, and middle
Yes.
schoolers too. I still think
I
they need
agree.
to play. But then you think about the high schooler who's in sports, in school, taking all these classes, and is working a job, or
Yes.
and might be watching younger siblings so that their parents can work.
Yes.
It's too much.
It's
just too much.
insane the loads that our kids have heaped on them.
Kids are not
I
supposed to
feel that.
carry an adult-sized load.
Amen to that.
Because you are literally a child for 18 years.
That's
and
so
even
short.
smaller. But
Such a short
you
amount
are,
of time.
that's it. And then the rest of your life you have to be an adult.
yeah.
We need to let
I
our
feel
kids
like
just
we're
be kids.
failing as a society. I feel like we're failing our kids.
Yeah.
We've taken away their childhood,
I agree.
and it's like we treat them like tiny adults. Well, adults
do,
get up,
but
you
we
got a
do.
job, you got a career.
Yes.
This is what time you got to be here, and then you get home, and then we're going to schedule this. Let's quick eat.
Yep.
Make sure you get your 3-hour schedule of homework in, and
Mm-hmm.
chop, chop, chop. We got to get you to dance. We got to get you to gymnastics. We got to get you to this. These
And we
kids,
wonder why
it's
people
no
are
wonder
just-
why they just lash out
Yeah.
or melt down, or they're just like full of anxiety
Yeah.
and depression, and
Well,
there's been no outlet.
There is no outlet. And again, it's that expectations that parents are like, well, we have to get our kids enrolled in preschool before we get pregnant. And I'm like, holy cow, slow down. That's just not a thing that you
Please don't do this.
No, it's not a thing that you need to do. And just, again, let your kids be kids. Like, so like when we take photos and we have
Yes.
family sessions,
Yes.
we try to tell the parents right away, we're going to capture your kids how they are
Right.
now. No 2-year-old
Those are the
sits and
best.
poses for photos, And so
No.
we try to incorporate a lot of movement and,
That's the joy of a 2-year-old.
it is the joy of a 2-year-old, and you look back at those photos and you're like,
Remember
that's how
that
they
day?
were.
Everybody's looking great in
Yes.
the 2-year-old.
Oh my gosh, and I love that. And then you can physically see the parents' stress levels go down when we say that. I mean,
Right.
like we had a little kid, he got a nosebleed the other day, and they were like cleaning them all up, and then a tiny little thing of blood got on the shirt, and I thought the dad's face, I thought he was gonna fall over.
Oh.
And I looked at him and I was like, we can Photoshop that out. Don't worry about
Easy
it. I'm like, not a
peasy.
problem at all. And he's like, oh, okay, thank you.
Look
And I'm like,
what we stress
just
about.
be.
Look about.
Just be. And have
the
fun.
stress level. Have fun.
Well, I always
have fun.
I always
Did you
try
say
to,
have fun?
Yeah, I always try to encourage families to make faces. Like when the kids are just
Please.
like not smiling, I'm like, all right, everybody make a silly face,
Yes.
and then you get the natural laughs after that.
That the natural face
Yeah.
without
so why
the tension.
does it have to be? Who likes photos that look like this? That's not it. We're not going to do that. But it's that same thing
Yeah.
all around. It's the expectations that parents and the society puts on these kids,
Mm-hmm.
and that teachers have. And I have such sympathy for teachers because so much of what they deal with comes from administration. Administrators do not have to be teachers. That I hold
Really?
issue with. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That is.
If you are in administration, you do not have to have a teaching degree,
Oh.
and you do not have to have ever set foot in a classroom.
My gosh.
So how are you to be running a school and telling these teachers what they need to do when you have never done it yourself? That is what I hold issue with. That's one of the biggest reasons that I quit my teaching job in Greenville.
That makes no
because
sense to me.
It was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and my principal was just attacking me over and
Oh,
over and over. You
man.
can't do it this way. I'm like, have you ever taught? Have you ever set foot in a classroom? No, you didn't. You went to school for something totally different. You don't know what it's like. To me,
You're
the
dealing
best,
with
the
little
best
people.
principals are the ones that have moved from teacher into principal.
sure.
Those are the best ones because they
sure.
understand the teachers, they understand the kids, they understand the parents. I think that should be a
Mm-hmm.
requirement to be a principal, that you have spent time teaching in a classroom.
Completely agree. Should
Yep.
be a given. And again, that crosses over. That's a normal expectation, you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember when I was still working as a paramedic, and the company I worked for hired a new top guy. New top guy has never done medicine or anything in the medical field
Mm-hmm.
a day in his life, but he was a brilliant businessman. So he goes, we're approaching this like a business.
Right.
And I'm like, this is going to fail because we're dealing with human lives.
Exactly.
Human lives are not a business made product.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make them in a factory. You can't dictate. You can't schedule the calls you're going to get. You have no idea when 911 is going to go off.
Right.
You have no idea. And it's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been a brilliant business guy. I won't take that away from him. He was. But you can't make treating people, whether it's teachers, whether it's in medicine, you can't approach it like it's a factory or a business that you just have to make sure that, the bottom line and
Right.
all this stuff. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, it's like that for anything, though. I feel like if you are going to be speaking to a subject, you need to have experience with that subject.
I agree.
There was a show sometime, I don't remember what it was, no idea, but they had been following this parenting book, right? Like to the T. The
Okay.
mom was like, this is our Bible of parenting, this is how we're going to do it. Well, then come to find out, the author didn't have any kids. And so the husband was like, we're listening to this woman's parenting advice and she doesn't have any children. Like, what in the world?
She's a person that wants all children to behave like this.
Right.
Without
Like,
ever having
and you might be
one.
a brilliant writer. You might,
Yes.
but if you don't have that experience, it just
And I'm
doesn't
sorry,
make any
being
sense.
an aunt isn't good enough.
It's not. You have to have your own. Your
You have to
own
do
children.
this 24/7. Like you have to be immersed in it and understand it.
Right.
And then kids don't come in just a certain variety.
Right.
You're going to get them all.
Yeah. Like I can pretend to know what it's like to feel like when my kids move out, or I can, kind of,
sure. Yeah,
hey,
you can
this is what it
imagine.
might be like, or whatever. But
Right.
I can't definitively say,
Yes.
this is what it's like, because I haven't reached that
Right.
yet.
I can definitively say what that is like. I cannot tell you what it's like trying to get kids through school right now.
Right.
Because that's past for me. And when my kids were there, it didn't look like this. It was on its way.
Right.
But it isn't like it is right now. And I'm thankful because I'm like, it's hard enough for me to keep up with what's going on in life,
Right.
let alone trying to safely and successfully steer my children.
Yeah, and we can't say things, and we've covered this before, but we can't say things like, I understand what you're going through, because you don't.
You don't.
You can sympathize with it. You can say,
You
well,
can
when I was this
imagine.
age, I remember this is how I felt. But we live in such a different world.
Oh,
And there's
drastically
no
different.
possible way that we can say, that we totally understand what it's like to be
Sorry,
a teenager or a 20-something or whatever in this day and age.
No.
That's just not.
No,
that's
it's
not
so
a thing.
different.
Yeah, and
So
so again,
different.
from like that parenting perspective, you cannot say, well, this is what worked with
Sorry,
us.
I got a bee
no,
that
you're
loves
good.
me.
Like you have a bee that has a total crush on you today.
know.
It's
I know
got
it's
some,
Stanley.
yeah. It's Stanley.
It's
I like
Stanley.
That.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
Stanley
my
loves
friend.
you.
Bees are great.
He does.
Don't sting me.
No, please don't. You're not allergic, are you?
No.
Okay, good. We totally
I'm
asked a girl that. Like, we sent her out into the sunflower field this weekend with all the bees, and we were like, "Oh wait, are you
Oh, by
allergic
the way,
to bees?"
how many
and she's like,
EpiPens do we
"She goes,
need?"
I don't think so." And I'm like, "Oh, that's not a good answer."
I had a pilot once as we were approaching Vegas and we hit turbulence. Like, I've never been through this. Like, the plane would just
Yes.
drop. And, like, all the signs came on and they're like, return to your seats now, secure everything. All the stewardess, they were sitting down and I'm like looking at this and I'm already this turbulence. And I'm like,
Oh yeah,
it's like
that is exactly
this.
what it feels like too. Yes.
And the pilot is coming on going, everything should be okay. And I'm like,
Everything
there's
should be?
one word in your sentence that you just
Should
said
is
that
not a
is
word
like,
that you put in that sentence.
I
Everything
know-
should be okay.
I know
That-
now why.
That made me panic more. Just that sentence
oh, it
that you
did.
just said.
You know the whole, you see people kiss solid ground? It's how I felt when I got off that plane. Everybody just went dead silent. I've never seen a plane unload so orderly,
Oh, my
quickly, and silently. Nobody said a word. I mean, like, things had dropped open, bags had fallen
Oh, my
out.
gosh.
Kids were screaming.
No, and that just shows you the power of choosing your words carefully. Everything's going to be okay. Would have been a good sentence.
Yes, even if it wasn't true at that point, we can't do
It doesn't
nothing
matter.
about it.
You'd
Lie
be
to
dead.
me.
Like, why does it? Like, there
No,
would have
lie
been
to
less
me.
stress like on your way out.
Oh, meant to do that. So no.
Oh my gosh, no.
Sorry about that detour. All of a sudden, what you were saying, it just made me I'm like, oh my goodness, choose your words.
Gotta choose
carefully.
your words so carefully.
Oh,
I know.
man.
And especially like with teenagers.
I'll ask you one quick question, and
Yeah.
you can see if we have time for it. Could we hit just briefly on parents advocating for their child?
Yes, please.
So
Yes.
I believe in that, and I think not enough parents do that, or they don't know how, or they don't know that they can.
Well, we have always said that the schools work for us.
Yes.
And that's how Aaron and I have
Yes.
felt about it the entire time. Like,
Yes.
we are not doing things for them. They are here to serve and to
Yes.
they're providing a service
Yes.
for our
I'm
family.
trusting you with my child.
Yeah. So keep that in mind when you are a parent.
Yes.
Is that parents have all the power when it comes to your kids' schooling.
Yes.
And not enough parents know that, like you said. There are not
Sure.
enough parents that know that they are the change.
Yep.
They are the ones that are going to produce the change.
Their kids need them. to
And
do that.
it's not something that you leave up to your student, especially when they're young. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe in high school you can let them do a little bit more, but when they're young, no.
Right. If you wouldn't let somebody come into your home and do that or take that approach with your child or try to make them work in such and such a way, you don't have to allow them to do that when they're sitting in a classroom either.
Right.
I believe strongly in there. Your kids depend on you to be their advocate. They need you to speak up and to get them the experience in school that they need to be successful.
Right.
And however that looks for your child, it's going to be different for everyone. But I just thought it was important just to throw in there that don't be afraid to make some noise when you have to make some noise. The kids are worth it.
Right. And on that note, do it with grace. Do
Yes.
it with tact. You do not want to just be attacking teachers because
Absolutely.
then the teachers will not be working with you.
Oh, no.
But if you come to them and say, this is my concern,
Right.
you know, whatever it is,
Yep.
throw a compliment in there. It helps a lot. And so that they know that you're doing this
Yes.
together,
Like, recognize
that you're not
a positive
attacking
they
them.
do. And it makes them much more receptive. Just saying, hey, I just wondered though, can we talk about this?
Yes.
You know, when I say make noise, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can very tactfully make noise without
Right.
being a bully or aggressive and in somebody's face.
Exactly.
In throwing out a compliment, I really like how you do this with the kids.
Right.
But I would just really love to talk to you about, Johnny, Susie,
Yep.
and just this area here, and thought maybe you and I together could come up with a solution or
Yep.
something. And then it's much better received.
It is.
And you're on a team.
Completely. And quite often it's just that the teacher might not even have noticed or didn't
For
realize or, and then when you bring that to their attention, then they can do something about it. Now, if
Absolutely.
they still choose not to, that's a different
You
situation.
can get a little noisier if you
But,
need to,
yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
remember to always maintain your composure. Don't lose your
And start
mind.
with the teacher. Start there.
For
If that
sure.
doesn't go anywhere, you can go to administration.
But don't climb right over them.
Don't start above their head. Go directly to them. Be very direct about
Yeah,
it.
they deserve that respect.
They're humans. Teachers are humans. I know a lot of people
Yes.
don't realize that, but teachers are humans too.
Yes.
And a lot of them are parents as well. And, so yeah, just conversations
Yes.
is a great thing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, if your kid is coming home consistently upset about something, there needs to be something said
I agree.
so that things can
I
be
agree.
changed.
And also, those teachers doing an amazing job out there, and that's most of you. Kudos, good job. We so appreciate you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to us. Sorry that the wind has picked up to the point where you can't hear us anymore.
If you can hear me, I'm just trying to say goodbye.
Goodbye. So long. Farewell.
Do, 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 do.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.
Yes.
Today we will be hitting 10,000 followers on TikTok.
Yes.
We're super excited. So please subscribe. Please follow us. Please like us. Please comment so we can get the message out there to as many people as possible.
Yes, please.
And happy Labor Day. Have a
Woo-hoo.
wonderful Labor Day this weekend. Be safe. Have fun. Enjoy if you're going somewhere. And we're going camping, so we're going to have a good time.
Oh, yes.
Bye.
Bye.